Welcome to the Schuby Show, where sports, movies, TV shows, technology, history, and more come to life. Now, please be seated and get ready for some more never-ending nonsense with yours truly, Schuby.
This is the Schuby Show with yours truly, Carson Schubert. And today on the show, we are privileged to be able to have Gary Larson on the show, a USD professor right now, but he formerly worked for CBS, developing a really cool technology that they used there for 10 years at CBS that just was able to inform the audience more of what was going on in the X's and O's of basketball. And Gary and one of his friends were able to create this using Photoshop and just different things that they had available to them. It's a pretty cool story, and he also enjoyed coaching, and that's part of the reason he was able to create this technology was because he was a coach and he knew a lot about basketball, and he still does. And so we're very privileged to have him on here. Very interesting story that he has about working with CBS as well. And hopefully you guys enjoy this episode with Gary Larson, formerly of CBS and now just a professor here at USD in Vermilion. So it's a lot of fun to talk with him, as always, when I've had classes with him, and it should be a lot of fun here as well. Hope you enjoy the show, and we will talk to you in a few moments. Welcome back to the Schuby Show, and now we are joined by USD professor Gary Larson. And Gary, it's really good to have you on the show here today.
Well, Carson, it's my pleasure.
And so before we get into your career and everything that you've done so far in your life, which is very a lot of interesting things that you've told me and other classes that you've had about. Let's talk a little bit about March Madness since that just got over. First of all, what'd you think of the ending of March Madness? Obviously, Matt Mooney didn't win, so that was kind of a bummer, but it's a pretty good tournament overall, I thought.
It was. The first weekend maybe didn't get the upsets that everybody likes to see, but Virginia somehow kept winning. If you look at their last 3 games, pretty much a miracle finish on all of them. So made it exciting. All those regional games were great. Even the women's Final Four, the semifinals and finals were well played. So I was happy Virginia won. Tony Bennett's a Wisconsin boy, just like me. I coached against his dad in college, and one of the assistant coaches is a friend of mine, so I was happy with Virginia winning.
And so getting into your role in March Madness, because you had a role in March Madness for a while, tell us a little bit about how you were involved with March Madness and your job there.
Well, it started about 1996. A friend of mine was the basketball coach at Lawrence High in Lawrence, Kansas. And when he was a student here and graduate assistant student too, we always goofed around with computer stuff and kind of got involved with Photoshop and the graphics. And we always said when we get into coaching, it would look a lot neater to have things drawn on a page instead of just scribbled with your hand. And through Photoshop, we started doing that. And as things progressed, we get a little better at it and decided that he could do something with some animation and show it in Photoshop and using Final Cut, the video software, and make the X's and O's move on the screen. And that looked pretty cool, right? So he just showed up one day at a Lawrence practice, or at a University of Kansas practice. He got to know a couple of assistant coaches, and Billy Packer happened to be there from CBS. And he just pulled his laptop out and said, "Here, let me show you this." And Billy goes, "That's pretty cool. We should use that." And about a week later, it was on TV. So I made it. You think this stuff goes on, and there's all this stuff. It was like, no, they just wanted to try it, and It was him and another guy went to a game, and they did it. And from that, we ended up getting a contract with CBS to do kind of the games that Billy Packer and Jim Nantz were doing, so the main game during the season. And then we'd follow their crew from the Big Ten tournament through the Final Four, live at the truck. So what started out as, hey, just take a look at this, ended up being about a 10-year relationship with CBS Sports.
That is really cool. And so tell me a little bit more about once you've got hired by CBS to help out with that. Like, did your role increase, or was it mainly centered around the technology that you guys were able to create?
It stayed pretty much true with just that segment. It was pretty much a pregame, here's what a play looks like. And then what we did was we did a game play at halftime. So it was a play in the game. We had to find a good play and draw it up and have it ready to go at halftime. And then Billy would talk about the play for about a 20, 30-second segment. And then that would be the end of that. So you had to have the ability to coach, because you had to think about a good play. You had to make sure it worked. And then you had the technical aspect of it to draw it up and make it work on television. So it was kind of interesting. We got in pretty good with the producer, Bob Dekas, who is the guy who ran through the Final Four as the main producer for college basketball, and he really liked what we were doing and kind of gave us free reign of picking the play out. And their big thing was, let's get a box around it, let's get a graphic with the name of it, and then they'd play some music behind it, and it would work. So everything went together pretty fast. They did give us some more airtime, I guess, in pregame at some of the games, so it worked out pretty well. But for really, we maybe were on the air for a minute the whole time, so not a lot, but it was fun to do.
Absolutely. And so a little bit more with CBS, and then we'll move on. What would you say was some of your favorite times at CBS, like just maybe with the tournament in general, or the people you got to work with, or a little bit of both?
Well, it's a lot of both. Being able to travel all over the country, going to different facilities. As a gym junkie, I kind of like that, to see all the places. I mean, we were in places like Rupp Arena and Texas Arena and East Rutherford were kind of a dumpy arena, that is. So from Arizona to New York, we got to see all these different gyms. Spent a lot of time in the gym. There was a lot of prep time, just getting things set up. But when we had downtime, we got to eat with the crew. So we got to meet some of the camera guys and the videotape guys. And, they just travel with the crew from weekend to weekend. And it's a life of a vagabond. You're not really sure where you are half the time. So that was kind of fun to see. And just how chaotic live television can be, but when you're watching it, it doesn't look like anything's going wrong. That's always kind of a fun part of it. So I wish I would have taken better notes and things like that for what I'm teaching now, but at the time it was really quite an interesting experience to see.
Yeah, that's for sure. That's really cool how you don't really know how things will go sometimes. You just create something and show it to somebody, and all of a sudden you're kind of hitting the big time. That's pretty cool to see.
It is, and the guys that were doing it were just mostly former coaches. There was another young lady who worked with us, Brenda Van Langen, who currently does play-by-play for ESPN college basketball now. So she kind of got her foot in the door that way too. So that was kind of cool to see Brenda do that. And the other guys were, former coaches and that had a little bit of technology aspect. We usually had two people on site. It wasn't always the same two, but the main guy was Chris Davis, and he pretty much ran that part of it. But sometimes I couldn't make every weekend, but we tried. And after a while, actually, we got to do it through videotape. They'd send a tape of the game out from New York, and he would work on that at home. And then send it back out to them. This is before the internet was any good, that you could just file transfer everything. They actually had a UPS guy come deliver the videotape to the house. So,
oh, wow.
The technology now, you just drop it in a box and you'd have that tape within 2 minutes, and they'd have it back within 2 hours. But it didn't quite work that way back then. So now we probably get to do more stuff. But the technology changed, and you see it all the time on TV now. So, but back 20 years ago, it was quite a big deal.
Yeah, that was definitely a very interesting thing to get you guys going, and very useful in talking about the game to the audience, I would say, as well.
Yeah, because the only thing they had before was the telestrator, and that would just get all covered with lines. To be able to show something more animation, and now they have that built into the game. Actually, there's a screen that you can, grab different arrows and circles, and it looks nice, and shade the court all built in. Whereas before, we captured a frame of video, put it in Photoshop, did all that work, sent it back out to video, and then played it. So now it's a lot more seamless than that and a lot quicker.
So now we'll shift gears here a little bit, and we'll talk a little bit more about your career as a whole and your life as a whole, and maybe just talk a little bit about how you got to that point at CBS, and then eventually how you got to being at USD and now where you are as a professor.
Well, it started out in college way back in the late 70s, Carson, way back. And I wanted to be a basketball coach. And the local college near my hometown, the head men's coach there was a good friend of my dad. My dad was the athletic director at the high school. They used the gym a lot, so friends with the family. He said, come here, I'll get you into coaching. That's how it works. You know somebody, and that's how you get into coaching. So my senior year in college, he gave me the freshman team to coach. So he said, you're going to either like it or not like it, so here you go. So he gave me the freshman team. I was coaching that team. We had 10-game schedule. I got, used to coaching. So I stayed on that program at Lakeland College in Sheboygan, Wisconsin for 3 years as his assistant. And Moose Wilson was his name. He's a legendary coach in Wisconsin, won over 500 games at that school. And after the third year, he goes, the women's coach is leaving. I'll hire you as the head women's coach if you want it. So I was 24 years old. Sure, I'll take it. So I took it. Was the head coach there 1 year. We were 14-0 in the conference, 18-7 overall. We lost to UW Green Bay in the NAI playoffs. Can you imagine that? A school of 400 playing a school of 12,000.
Oh my!
And now those schools are all Division I. Mm-hmm. But at the time they were NAI because women's basketball was still kind of just getting going. And from that job, then I got hired out here in South Dakota as assistant coach with the women's team, and was that for 3 years, and then head coach for 5 years. And at that point, we kept losing to North Dakota State because they won the national title 5 years in a row there. That wasn't fun. So when this opportunity came up to do some other things with the technology and be less stressful, I did that. So worked on that a little bit. And so I was out of coaching, but still was really involved with the basketball aspect of it. So that was kind of fun. So from that, I moved on to more technology aspect and worked with the nursing program here at USD for about 13 years, doing some distance education, organizing their courses online. This was in the infancy of internet teaching, so did a lot of work that way and end up now teaching here. So quite a road.
Yeah, absolutely. So how did you actually end up getting into nursing from coaching? That's quite an interesting jump from one career to another.
It was, but it was mainly the technology aspect of the education. I ended up getting a graduate advanced degree here from USD in teaching in education and technology. So that gave me the cred to do that, and I didn't know anything about nursing. I still don't. Didn't have to. I had to know about how to get stuff online, and we did a lot of video demonstrations because we had remote students, so got pretty good with video and just did that aspect of it. So that was kind of neat. And now they do all these animations and simulations now. So nursing is very technology oriented in their teaching, and I kind of helped them get started in that. But I kind of missed the teaching aspect. When I was coaching here, I taught in the hyper department. So when the opportunity came up to teach full time, I took it and been doing that now for my 7th year.
Yeah, that's very, very cool how that all happened, and just an interesting thought that I had was, would you say that you would have enjoyed the nursing side of things, like with the technology and stuff, more than what you are doing now, or would you say this is probably your favorite thing that you've done at your career at USD so far?
Well, this is a lot better than what I was doing. When I was doing that, I wasn't really working with any students at all. I mean, it was all actually only working with the faculty, and that wasn't as much fun. Faculty aren't a lot of fun to work with. The students are a lot more fun. I mean, I get it. I feel like teaching's part of coaching. There's not a lot of difference there, really. Just can't yell as much when you're teaching, or the grades don't get posted on TV, so I guess that's a good part of it. Haven't lost a game, Carson, in 20 years, so that's pretty good. But I really enjoy the teaching more and working with the students. I've never been out of college. Like I said, I was in college from the first day I graduated from college, and I was still in college, so I still feel like I'm 26 years old sometimes, or 22, so that makes it fun too. That's the best part about it.
You bet. Make you feel young. That's always good. So one of the things that I kind of have been interested to know is some of your relationships that you've had throughout the years. Obviously you probably didn't get to have as many relationships with the field that I'm interested, the play-by-play side of things, but maybe some of the relationships with men or women that are doing great things. I know you mentioned the gal doing play-by-play for ESPN now. How about any other relationships that you would say that you still are close with some people around the sports industry?
Well, what's interesting is we have a group of old coaches from Wisconsin that used to work either at UW-Milwaukee or Marquette, or worked their summer basketball camps they always offered out of Milwaukee. And we just, during the Final Four, we get on an email kick about picking teams and talking about the Final Four. So there's guys there from old Marquette coaches to Milwaukee to guys I worked with the basketball camps, and they're all over the country right now. So when that comes up, we always look forward to that, and just talking about the old days. And Rick Majerus getting into Hall of Fame just last week, a mentor of a lot of these guys. I got to work basketball camps with Rick, so you see that stuff. That's kind of cool. Just meeting other coaches from around the country. We get to meet a lot of people like that. The people I met in television, the guy in Kansas still keeps in very close touch with the producer from CBS. When Leslie Visser was here, I worked with her for a couple of games in the Final Fours, and she claimed she remembered that. I don't think she did, but we hit it off still and talked about the old days and what it was like. So, you just, the people you run into, it's really kind of cool. But in sports, I think you kind of keep a tight-knit organization, the people that you've worked with, because you all go through the same issues. And just like seeing Virginia, Brad Soderberg on the bench. A lot of people around here maybe remember him, but he was the head coach at SDSU for 3 years. Then he moved on. He worked with Tony's dad, Dick, at Wisconsin. And then Brad got a job at the head coach at St. Louis University for a few years. And now he's been an assistant with Tony at Virginia. And I actually coached against Tony's sister, Kathy, at Wisconsin Oshkosh. So the Bennett family, I've never met Tony, but, I met his dad and his sister and one of his assistants. So you kind of feel like you know those guys after a while. So it all comes around, and even though I haven't been involved with that aspect of it, we still kind of keep in touch with some of the people, and that makes it really fun.
Yeah, it does. I was telling my roommate when we were watching some of the games, I kept on saying, I'm waiting for him to start singing, Tony Bennett to start singing, but I don't think it's going to happen.
No, he left his heart in Minneapolis.
So, yeah. In terms of games, I'm sure you probably didn't really get to watch as much basketball when you were working with CBS. Because you were obviously working, but what would you say are some of the more memorable moments in like the tournament itself when you were able to work with CBS?
I remember the one Final Four in Indianapolis. It was Arizona was playing Utah, I think, and it was in the old Hoosier Dome or RCA Dome. I remember how loud it was. I mean, it was packed. The semifinal, I think Kentucky was there, so obviously that was close. Just how much goes on around the game itself. Everybody just sees the two games on Saturday, but there's a coaches convention, there's a big exhibit hall, there's a fan jam, there's concerts, there's all this other stuff going on that you can witness and be a part of. And, working with the television, you got a pass to go wherever you wanted, which was kind of cool. So probably the best part wasn't even the games themselves. It was just all the other stuff. You could go to the press conferences and, even go to practices and stuff just to see that. So that was really kind of cool. As a guy who wants to see how other things work, that was kind of fun. But a lot of different games. Here's something probably people don't remember either is back when we started, there was only one channel. There was CBS. That was it. They had one game on at a time. If the game wasn't very good, they cut away from that game. So if we're doing the game, and I remember this game was North Carolina Air Force, it was 20 points at halftime. North Carolina's ahead. It was like, we're done. They're not going to show us anymore. So we didn't even have the play-by-play guys talking or anything. They filmed it. They recorded it for highlights and stuff, but we weren't broadcasting the game. We just sat there. So, now everything's on. Every game's on. But back then, if your game wasn't very good, you were not on. So it was. You just sat there. I mean, you'd have Jim Nance sitting there, and he'd eat a bad box of popcorn waiting for the next game to start because our game is over.
That is very interesting. So they would just wait for the next game, and did they I wonder how that would affect sponsors back then, or if that really didn't have any effect with sponsors. I mean,
it didn't because they weren't paying as much,
right?
And they had one game on, so that if it was the noon tip off, you had 4 games going on pretty much at the same time, right? Like you do now. Mm-hmm. But you could only have one of them on, and sometimes they switch back and forth. So if you were a viewer, you weren't even invested in a full game many times. So it was kind of annoying.
Yeah.
For that aspect of it.
Yeah, and so were there actually 64 games still, or 64 teams that were in the tournament back then?
Yeah, still 64. So it was 8 games you had 8 teams at a site. You didn't do the pot system either. So you had your whole regional played in the same site. So the 1 through 8, played or whatever it was, and it wasn't like it is now where you could have 2 1-seeds at the same place, right? Mm-hmm. So you kind of usually had a couple bad games in there that weren't great matchups that were going to be blowouts. So
yeah,
it was fun though. I mean, those first round days when you had 4 games on at once, you were there pretty much a 16-hour day. So.
Oh man. And we think today is still pretty long, with all the games, but at the same time, it's not as many games at the same site and all that. So I think it's definitely improved in the viewing aspect.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. And that you can watch your team play and you can see the whole game is important too, so.
Absolutely. And your coaching side of things, maybe talk a little bit more about that and how you first got to USD coaching-wise. Like, how did that connection bring itself about?
Well, when I was at Lakeland and the season was over, I wanted to move on. I'd been there, enough, and just applied to a bunch of places. I didn't know anybody here at all. I had no idea. I knew they had a dome. That was about it. Drove out here for an interviewed with the head coach, Fred Tibbetts, at the time, and got hired on the spot. So that was in May of '87. So I came out here in August and still here. So it was just, they needed somebody, and I was available, and had to coach tennis also. So I was the head assistant women's basketball coach and head women's tennis coach.
And then did you eventually become the head women's basketball coach?
I did. After 3 years, Fred went back to high school, and I took over for him and did that for 5 years then. So.
And what would you say was your probably favorite memory of coaching USD women's basketball here?
Well, let's see. We won exactly half the games I coached, so 50-50. We beat Portland State. Came in here; they were ranked 7th in the country. Beat them by 18 points. That was kind of fun. Probably the biggest memory I have, though, is we were playing North Dakota State in at that time, the Division II regional. They took 4 teams from each region. There were 8 regions. We were the 3 seed. I think they were the 2 seed. And we lost in overtime by 1 point on a last-second shot.
Oh, jeez.
So you kind of remember those things more than you do the good things. A kid stepping in the free throw line when we're up 1, missing a shot, and them hitting a shot or something like that. That's just all those things you remember, one little play here and there. But the kids we had were fun. A lot of those girls I coached, there's 6 or 7 in the Coyote Hall of Fame. So, you feel good about that stuff, and you keep in touch with them a little bit. Couple live in town still. Had one of their kids as a student, so now I'm old.
Yeah, that's pretty cool, though, that you're still able to fight through the 500 play. I mean, that's not always easy to do, but I guess maybe what's one thing that kept you wanting to coach, even though you weren't winning as many games as you would have probably liked to?
Well, it's fun. I mean, it's a fun job. You don't feel like you're working. Mm-hmm. It's a super time commitment. There's no doubt about that. Even at the Division II level, you're gone a lot recruiting. My wife didn't like that, even though she was a former player. She didn't really care for being gone so much, and that wasn't the best part. But I enjoyed the games. I enjoyed the practice. Recruiting, all that stuff was kind of fun. It was a grind, though. It's a tough job to, devote your full time to. And you have to.
Yeah, absolutely. That's how so many of these coaches that we've had at USD, like Craig Smith, he got to Utah State, and different coaches throughout the years. They continue to go different places, go up in the world, I guess, so to speak, and that's because they grind, and they know it's a grind, and that is also a commitment, and does take you away from your family, but it's definitely, if you love it, then you're going to keep on doing it, and I think that's what the key is, probably, would you say?
Yeah, you got to embrace it. You never worry about losing or anything like that, because, that's just going to happen. And you look at Virginia. You could have lost 4 of those games easily. Oh, yeah. Right? But they did. So now you're the national champ. So you're putting your livelihood in the hands of 18 to 22-year-old kids. When you think about that, you kind of get some perspective on that, and it's probably not the greatest thing in the world when you think about it, but that's the choice you make. And for every coach that makes it, there's one that doesn't. or probably 5 that don't. But the ones that make it, I mean, if you're John Calipari, you make a pretty good living. And no, how can you not lose at Kentucky, right? But they can lose. Something can go wrong there too. So nothing always ends great for a lot of coaches, but the ones that can kind of hang on and let it go, that's always great.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess one of the last things I want to touch on with you is the sports marketing aspect of what you're doing now, and maybe just some things that you've learned about sports marketing since you started teaching it, and maybe some of the cool things in sports marketing that you've seen, different tactics that people have used or different ads.
Well, some of the how technology has changed sport marketing is one big thing. How we watch a game. As I'm talking to you, I'm distracted by the Masters online, of course. And 10 years ago, that never happened. Right. We can watch any game anywhere we want to be, and so the marketing aspect of that is you have to promote your brand and your team. You're selling ads in a different way, because people don't want to watch them, so you got to put little bugs in, right? The little thing in the screen. Shorter ads, we see that play through now, right? Baseball started that with this 8-second ad or whatever it was. So we dump little commercials in when we can. Auto racing, golf, kind of do the play through so they keep the screen up, right? You can still see what's going on, but there's a commercial. Well, that didn't even happen last year, right? That's something new. So that the world just keeps changing in terms of marketing aspect of it, and how we watch games live when we go to a game. There's a trend now for smaller arenas, more experience happening, even cheaper concessions, if you can even believe that, right? So yeah. There's just a lot of changes going on from 15, 20 years ago, where you sold somebody a ticket and that was all you needed to do, and everybody was happy, to I need some entertainment, I need something at halftime, I need a contest, I need some social media. I mean, it's a 24/7 job now, where before it was a game and that was it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's quite interesting. Like you mentioned, I told you about that on Twitter, that the Twins were doing that with marketing this year, putting the prices down of a lot of the concessions, even beer, which for a couple different types of beer, which was very huge, because there's just so much expense in the game when you have to combine the price of concessions as well. And I thought that was interesting that they were making that move.
And parking and everything else, right? So yep. I think the competition for the dollar, and you bring a family, it'd be really expensive. So there's just so many changes. Like even Twitter, you can tweet at Major League Baseball which guy you want to see bat live, and they can put up a guy, right? So or just follow Zion at the whole game. We're just going to put a camera on him, and you can just watch him. So I mean, the stuff we do is quite fascinating when you think about it.
Yeah, and then I also shared with you that Skittles had a new advertisement of a tarp for a baseball game, which I have never seen that before. Maybe there was other things that have done that before, but I thought that took a while to get that type of marketing out there. But I think it's great that there's finally somebody that's doing that.
And that's even funnier on a tarp, because you got to chase the rainbow, right?
Yes.
No, but you got a big piece of something sitting there, you might as well put an ad on it, right? So
Exactly. While the fan is waiting to get back onto the game, they can go grab some Skittles.
That's right.
So, is there anything else that we maybe missed that you would like to talk a little bit about before we wrap up here?
No, I think that's good. You do a great job with your podcast, Carson. I'm glad to see your initiative to do this. It's a good thing to practice, if nothing else, and it's fun to do.
You bet. I really enjoy getting to talk to people and learn more about what they've done with their life and what they've got coming up and that type of thing. So I really am grateful to have the opportunity to know people and be able to talk with them. And again, I'm thankful that you were able to come on the show as well today.
Yep, no problem.
So, again, this is Gary Larson from the University of South Dakota, a professor formerly working with CBS and formerly a basketball coach for USD, as well as many other places that you mentioned, Gary, and it's just been a really good time to be able to talk with you about your career and how it's all unfolded up to this point.
Yep, thank you, Carson. I appreciate it.
And that's going to do it for this week on The Schuby Show. We will see you next time.
Thanks for listening to The Schuby Show. We hope you mildly enjoyed yourself with more never-ending nonsense with yours truly. For more nonsense, go to the website, theschubyshow.com. Get the show on iTunes, Google Play, YouTube, Stitcher, and TuneIn Radio. Until next time, Skol.